What's up, connoisseurs? It's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back on The Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ stocks, crypto assets, news, and interviews. Also home to the best MJ community and the channel that was created by a retail investor for retail investors. Today is Tuesday. It's September 24th. We're doing awesome. And in this video, we've got some exciting news with regards to an industry leadership summit. They're going to be discussing key challenges in the MJ space here in Canada, and that's going to be held on October 1st. So save the date. We'll go through all of the details. I don't think there's going to be any major movement on October 1st. So if you're saving the date, don't expect any major announcements or developments. It's probably going to be, I would say, likely at some point in 2025, but maybe toward the end of the year. But I would say it's most likely going to be in 2025 where we start to see improvements. We know that, the amount of milligrams that they put in one single package has always been an issue here in Canada. There was issues with drinks and only being able to buy like 5 or 6. And the ratio there just didn't really add up. And since then they've increased that. So that was great to see. So they are making some progress. It's just a lot slower than most would think. But when it comes to the government, it shouldn't be too surprising. Before we get to it, make sure to smash the like. It helps support me in the channel. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff. You'll be notified on any future videos or when I go live. As always, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and you should never buy or sell anything based on anything that I say or write. This is for entertainment purposes only. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter. Handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. So here was the news that broke today. Canadian MJ Leadership Summit convenes to address critical industry challenges impeding growth. And it was an invitation to the Canadian MJ Leadership Summit. So basically a call out. The Canadian MJ legalization has been a success for Canadians, as well as the federal, provincial, and regional governments, but the industry cannot be sustained if we together, the industry leaders, policymakers, and experts cannot find solutions to the most pressing issues facing the Canadian MJ industry. And as of right now, the Canadian government is the biggest beneficiary of Canadian legalization because there's some names, take it Tilray, they pay over $150 million a year in excise taxes. So imagine if that was switched to, and he said it multiple times, or when Simon, the CEO, said that they could potentially switch from a flat fee to a percentage fee, which would essentially save them $150 million a year under that new framework. So imagine that if, these companies had tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on their bottom line, that could make the difference between, not profitable and profitable. So this change alone, just with regards to excise tax, could potentially reshape the whole entire industry. And those that weather the storm, those that make it through this, this difficult time, there's bankruptcies, insolvencies, left, right, and center. Those that have the staying power and that make it out the other side, those are going to be the real winners long term, in my opinion. And it's not even really that surprising to see this because, yes, it's been almost 6 years in Canada since we legalized at the federal level. But you have to ask yourself, why are they so slow with reform with regards to, MJ and, supporting the industry? You have to think a lot of this has to do with the failed war on drugs, and a lot of it has to do with social equity and giving everybody equal opportunity. And you see it in the U.S. all the time, right? They're trying to, let different parts of society, get a head start because they were impacted the most by it, right? With social equity and things like that. While I agree with that, they talk out of both sides of their mouth, really, is what they're doing. So they're trying to give people they're trying to make people believe that, the little guy and gal have, the advantage or can get into the industry, right? And sometimes they're given the advantage because of, certain demographics that were targeted, etc. But, at the end of the day, the reason why they're so reluctant to change and making these changes and improvements to regulations is because they're trying to weed out, no pun intended, they're trying to weed out the small players, right? Because we know that it's going to be, probably 5 to 10 big major players. And a lot of them are going to be backed by big alcohol, big tobacco. Look at all the Canadian companies here in Canada. They're mostly all backed by big alcohol, big tobacco. And in my opinion, those are the companies that can sustain, that can weather the storm, right? They can sustain it because they have the money and the investors and the capital to back it. Whereas the reason why, it's been 6 years without any reform, and the reason why, 280E still exists in the U.S. and et cetera, is because I really think that they're just trying to put on the smoke and mirror show that, everybody, every Joe and Jane has the opportunity to participate, but, it's not our fault you didn't succeed. It was your fault. You can start a store, right? But we know it's probably the government's fault at the end of the day, because they're just not supporting the industry. They're not setting us up there for success. They're setting us up for failure. And again, I think that has to do with the fact that they're trying to protect the incumbents. They're trying to make it look like, everybody has an equal playing field. But at the end of the day, it's really about monopolizing it, right? And we're seeing that in the U.S. as well. So I've been a strong believer of that. And the more that I see, the more that I see, things get delayed, the more I believe that even more. So this is going to be hosted by the MJ Council of Canada, and the Canadian MJ Leadership Summit is an exclusive panel-style conference gathering steps away from Parliament Hill, where the most influential voices from public and private sectors will come together to discuss and debate the critical challenges hindering industry advancement. So the event details is going to be on Tuesday, October 1st, 2024, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., and that's going to be at the National Arts Centre, 1 Elgin Street, Ottawa, and then it's going to be Oborne Room, in the Oborne Room. Key topics: excise duty, an in-depth discussion of its impact on the industry and potential reforms. Well, I can tell you one thing, the excise taxes, some of these companies are paying 1/3 of their revenue are going towards excise taxes. Like, this is absolutely asinine insanity at its finest. We need to change that, right? You can't have half or a third of your revenue going to excise taxes. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, high tax it at the beginning, but then incrementally lower it over time. And what happened to alcohol is they did something similar where, they lowered it super low, and then they gradually raised it over time. Excise stamp, so addressing the challenges and exploring solutions for compliance and efficiency. Regulatory burden, so strategies for reducing complexity in a highly regulated environment. And then standard psychoactive component unit, quantifying MJ in a way that allows us to better inform people about consumption. So again, we should see some improvements come to that with regards to the limit in each pack. Also, spokesperson will be Paul McCarthy, the president of the MJ Council of Canada. So our panelists, we have Bina Goldenberg, which is the CEO of Organogram. We have Orville Bovenschen, president of Pure Sun Farms. David Lobo, CEO of Ontario MJ Store. We have Dr. Mark Ware, director, Allen Edwards Pain Management Unit. We have Jillian Schauer, I think her name is, executive director at US MJ Regulators Association. And we have Barry Katzman, managing director at Peak Processing. So this is great to see that we have industry advocates and regulators, participants, the CEO of Organogram going to be there as well. So overall, I think this is a great step in the right direction. We need to get our voices heard and reach out to your elected representatives as well in your area, whether, be at the provincial level, the municipal level, the federal level. We need to let all of our elected officials know, every one of our representatives in our area know that this is something that has to change. It's time for us to support the MJ industry. It's been almost 6 years. We need to advance the industry. We need to protect, small businesses as well. And right now it's the small businesses that are getting hurt the most, right? These big corporations, right? These big multi-billion-dollar corporations that are getting backing from big alcohol, big tobacco. Those are the companies that need to worry, right? They're just going to go and they're going to raise, they're going to dilute, which we've seen Canadian companies do. And they're just going to tap the equity markets, and it's going to dilute the company, and it's just going to, kick the can down the road. But essentially, they can weather the storm for as long as they need to, right? They can get financial backing from, all these big investors, whereas it's the little guy and the little gal that don't have this luxury, right? So in my opinion, we need to step up, support this industry, and not just, the big players. We need to support small business and the average Joe and Jane. So hopefully this gets something, across the finish line, because we've seen it a topic of concern for a while now, with regards to limits and things like that. Also excise taxes. So I think those are two very big issues at the moment. And then advertising, different things like that, packaging. Some of them are pretty plain Jane. We need to get, a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, I think would help. And then overall, putting it into different convenience stores and gas stations, things like that. Obviously you're not going to be able to walk into a gas station and have the same selection as you would at a dispensary, but at least have the bare minimum and a few things like a couple edibles, a couple beverages, etc. So we've got a lot of growth ahead. We know that High Tide just recently partnered with an events company here in Alberta, and we had the first ever at the Great Outdoor Music Festival with Kevin Hart as one of the performers. That was the first event in Canada where you could go and buy MJ products right there outside at the comedy festival. So this is going to be huge. We're going to see events and festivals, venues. You're going to see concerts. You're going to see, if you go to the Edmonton Oilers game, or you go to the Dallas Stars game, or you go to the Kansas City Chiefs, eventually you'll be able to buy all of these products there, right? And it's mostly going to be beverages, in my opinion. But let me know what you think of this news. Going into there, like I said, save the date, October 1st. It's Rod with Power Group. Thanks again for joining us in the Pursuit of Wealth. Have a great day, and we'll see you again on the next video.